Fernando Alonso has completed his first Formula 1 season after a 2-year absence from the sport. It was thought that perhaps the old fox would no longer have what it takes at the highest level, but nothing could be further from the truth. So in this GPFans Special, let's take a look back at the year that was 2021 for the two-time world champion, Fernando Alonso. But before we get into all of Alonso's greatness from last season, let's just hit that subscribe button down below to stay up to date with everything that we produce here at the channel on GPFans. But now, more of the magnificent Spaniard and his triumphant return back to the Formula 1 grid. Anyone who knows Formula 1 knows Fernando Alonso. In the early part of his career, after completing several championships, he made the transition to Formula 3000 as a rising star in the year 2000. This is where his motorsport career really took off, as it was in this class of racing that the Spaniard impressed many of the Formula 1 teams watching. Minardi were the most interested in the services of the young driver. During the 2001 season, at the age of 19, he made his debut at the highest level of motorsport, and it didn't take long for him to rise through the ranks, taking 2 world titles consecutively in 2005 and 2006 with the Renault F1 team. Alonso ends his Formula 1 career. Fernando then made the move to the great Ferrari team before returning back to McLaren, who he was with after Renault in 2015. However, the British stable was in a difficult position at the time. In combination with a disappointing power source provided by Honda, Alonso decided to call it a day after the 2018 season. However, he did not stay out of sight for too long. The veteran took part in numerous championships and in the meantime regularly alluded to a comeback to the Premier class of F1. This came to fruition when he joined Alpine at the beginning of this year, the evolution of his former employer Renault. Return to Alpine. Alonso was announced with a lot of fanfare, but there was also a fair bit of criticism. Why did such a valuable seat in Formula 1 go to a returning old hand instead of perhaps a young, exciting talent? He did not let himself be fooled and showed early in the season that he was still able to give a lot of gas. His return started with a did not finish in Bahrain, however, but at Imola he crossed the line in 10th and immediately claimed his first World Championship points of the season. The battle with Ocon. He also scored points in Portugal, but that triggered a weaker run in the season. In Spain and Monaco, Alonso failed to score, while his younger teammate Esteban Ocon finished ahead of him time and time again. Up to this point, every race of the season, Ocon had outdone Alonso, but that changed in Baku with a handsome 6th place finish, while his French colleague was awarded a DNF. In France, he also finished in the points above Ocon. Impressive defending. It soon became clear that Alonso could really compete at the highest level. Points were also scored in Austria, and he had that sensational sprint session in Great Britain before another point score on Sunday that weekend. But in Hungary, we saw the real Alonso of yesteryear for the first time. The Spaniard impressively keeping Lewis Hamilton behind him for a long spell despite the Mercedes being faster and on fresher tyres, allowing Esteban Ocon, his teammate, to take a victory. Alonso himself, after his dutiful work to support his teammate, ended up finishing 4th, the team's best weekend finish for a number of years. The wily old fox. After the flooded weekend in Belgium, Alonso continued to score points in Zandvoort, Italy and Russia successively. At the Sochi Autodrome, he once again impressed the fans. The stewards had announced before the race that no penalties would be handed out on the first lap for using the escape route, after which Alonso flew through it at full throttle and overtook a number of cars. Now, some did call it unfair, but Alonso was just stretching the barriers of the rulebook and perhaps the track limits as well, and using all of his experience to gain an advantage over the rest of the field. Podium place. There weren't any good results for Alonso in Turkey and the United States, but in Mexico and Brazil, Fernando crossed the line twice in 9th. The highlight of the season, however, came for the Spaniard in Qatar. After an impressive race, he crossed the line in 3rd between Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, the two Red Bulls. With that, he seized his first podium place since the Hungaroring back in 2014. And everybody, I think, in Formula One was pleased to see Fernando back in the top 3. A solid season overall. There were no points in Saudi Arabia, but during the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, Fernando Alonso finished in 8th position. All in all, it was a solid 81 points and 10th in the Drivers' Championship upon his return to Formula One. He finished above Esteban Ocon, who ended up 11th in the drivers' standings with 74 points, and together they have given Alpine 5th place in the Constructors' battle. So I think it's fair to say that the Spaniard's return has been a welcome and excellent one back into Formula One this year. And you can tell that perhaps from his final radio message of the season that we heard on track in Abu Dhabi, when he seemed to indicate that this would just be the launching point for both he and Alpine going into the 2022 season. Perhaps together there is more to come from the old fox on the grid. Remember, of course, you can hit the subscribe button down below to stay up to date with all of the content we produce this off-season going into Bahrain in March in the 2022 campaign. And of course, get onto @GPFans Global on Twitter and Instagram as well for all of the breaking news and F1 updates.